In this installment, we're going to be going over Thursday Night Football Showdown slate on DraftKings between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Jets. Let's get into it. Hey, yo! Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Chef D, and I'm here to give you the winning ingredients for your Thursday night showdown slate on DraftKings between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Jets. But before I deep dive into this very intriguing matchup we got here for you, the number one pick and the number two pick of that draft with Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. Before I get into that, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're following me on Instagram and Twitter at MetsNetsJetsD. And don't forget about the TikTok at Chef_D. And don't forget about that Patreon. We had killer picks for Monday Night Football, all right? We had great selections, all right? And one of the key factors here for Monday Night Football was A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon was in my main captain here. As you can see, he went completely off, had 2 touchdowns, 33 fantasy points. The only problem that I had, as you see, my lineup is on the left and number one was on the right here. I went with Aaron Rodgers and Christian Watson when I should have went with Aaron Jones. Okay, Aaron Jones, Romeo Doubs, that was a nice 1-2 punch. Or you could have went with Randall Cobb. He had a nice amount of fantasy points as well to go with. Green Bay Packers defense, I went with the kicker as well. That was fine. The only error there was with Aaron Rodgers and Watson. So, hey, we were almost to the mountaintop. That's okay, guys. You got to sign up for these great selections. I had a 2 TD bet on A.J. Dillon as well. That cashed. So you guys are missing out. Hop into that Patreon. Get these winning plays, okay? Get these winning plays. Let's get on to the injury report. Before we hop into the flex ops and the El Capitans, we got to go over that injury report. And for this game here for the New York Jets are up first, Brandon Echols, okay? He's going to be on trending towards being out, okay? So he was a DNP on Wednesday. He's pretty much out for the game. Denzel Mims in concussion protocol. It's not enough time for him to be cleared. He's most likely going to be out as well. We're waiting on news on Jeff Smith. He didn't practice as well. If we're going to, he's more towards a game time decision for him. All right. For the Jacksonville Jaguars side of the ball, we got a couple big outs here. Foley Fatukasi, former New York Jet, he's trending towards being out. Trevor Lawrence didn't practice, but he's going to be trending towards playing. And the key injuries here for the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be on that offensive line. Starting lineman Cam Robinson, he didn't practice. And Brandon Sheriff, both of those guys are going to be out for this game on Thursday. So that's going to bode well for the New York Jets defensive line and for the fact that they're going to have Quinnen Williams back as well. So those are positives. And we know how strong this New York Jets defense is. So let's get into the El Capitans. For the El Capitans, we're going to start at the tippy top here. And we are going to go and start and talk about Trevor Lawrence. Now, Trevor Lawrence as a captain, this one is going to be more towards a flex play, all right? I got to start off at the top and warn you guys, this is not a good matchup here. Let's go to fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. We're going to flip that all the way around. And the New York Jets are top 3 in the league, 3 overall and 3rd in the red zone as well, only allowing 199 passing yards and 0.8 TDs per game, okay? They did an outstanding job against the Detroit Lions and let one big play go. That was one lapse in judgment on defense, but they played strong throughout the entire game. So to expect Trevor Lawrence to have 36 fantasy points or 31 fantasy points, that is not the case for this one. If we're going to play Trevor Lawrence, it might be at that flex position, but I'm going to stay away from him as a captain. All right. Next, we're going to get into Zach Wilson, the other quarterback in that draft, number 2 overall. So here, Zach Wilson, is he in a better position? He quite frankly is. Let's look at fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. Let's flip that all the way around to the bottom tier. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars. He faced the Detroit Lions last week. He had a solid performance. If we're looking at it as fantasy, it was good. It was good. 23 fantasy points. If you're looking at it in real life, it was bad. 51% completion percentage, a lot of missed throws, a lot of missed easy throws. He cannot throw the ball in the middle. That's one of his mess ups, but he is so capable of throwing the difficult pass, the deep pass down the field. And this is where you get the juicy fantasy points. And this is where Zach Wilson can provide value. So, hey, it is there. They're allowing 287 yards per game, 2.4 TDs per game as well. This bodes well for Zach Wilson. All right, if there wasn't any lapse in judgment on the defense side of the ball, maybe we can get some more consistency. Maybe we need more RPOs. Get Zach Wilson in motion. He needs to be moving and throwing the ball in space, and stay away from the pocket plays. Okay, he's not Mike White. Zach Wilson, we got to play to his strengths, and this is a perfect environment for him to step up. All right, these are two bad defenses back to back. All right, so we had 23 fantasy points against Detroit. I expect something very similar in this game, going up against another poor defense here in the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, let's continue to go down the list. Christian Kirk, Christian Kirk, the wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's going to become more of a flex option as well. He's going to have to deal with DJ Reed and or Sauce Gardner. Let's look at fantasy points allowed to that wide receiver position, and the Jets have been top 2 the last past couple weeks. All right, 2 overall, 11th in the red zone, only allowing 109 yards total to wide receivers and 0.4 TDs. So this is not a good environment for him as well. So we might stay away from him and Christian Kirk, because he's going to be seeing elite corners. Christian Kirk becomes more of a flex in this. Can we see some success with Travis Etienne? Yes, we can. All right. The Jets are solid against stopping the run, but they do give up some good performances. All right. They got to be consistent with Travis Etienne, and he's going to see work rushing and receiving as well. Let's double check with fantasy points allowed to that running back position. And the Jets are in the middle. This is the way that the Jacksonville Jaguars can move the ball on the New York Jets. Jets are 11th overall, 12th in the red zone, 90 yards a game. So that's okay. And 4.2 yards a carry as well to the running back position. They're giving up 41 receiving yards and 5 receptions a game. So that's where they can get creative and get Travis Etienne the ball if they're struggling with their wide receivers. They're going to have to get the ball to the running backs, and they're going to have to get the ball to their tight ends. All right, we'll get to that very soon. So Travis Etienne is going to be an option at captain. Zach Wilson as well. Let's get to one of Zach Wilson's number 1 options, and that is Garrett Wilson. All right, Garrett Wilson has been great all year long, and I expect him to have an over 20-point fantasy performance in this game against Jacksonville. Let's look at fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. If they're giving up big yardage to quarterbacks, you know that they're giving up big yardage to wide receivers. 24th overall, 30th in the red zone. So they're giving up a ton of touchdowns. 160 yards to wide receivers and 1.4 TDs a game. That's going to bode well for guys like for Garrett Wilson, who we got here at $9,000 in salary. And that's going to bode well for Elijah Moore, who's just a little bit lower down here. Don't forget about Elijah Moore with Corey Davis questionable. Elijah Moore has been getting more and more work now. All right, so these two guys are going to have to get cooking for the New York Jets here. We saw 7 targets and 10 targets the past 2 weeks. So that is a big jump for what we saw from Elijah Moore earlier in the season. So Zach Wilson, I expect him to get connected with these 2 top tier wide receivers on their team. All right, let's see if we can find some other gems at the captain spot. And I talked about that tight end position. Evan Ingram in this Doug Peterson offense, we know that tree where he comes from with what he implemented with the Philadelphia Eagles. They throw to the tight end at a very, very high clip. If there's going to be good corners on their wide receivers, they're going to have to attack the running backs and the tight ends. And Evan Ingram has been on a whole nother level the past few weeks. 25 targets the past 2 weeks against Tennessee and Dallas. And in this game, if we're looking at fantasy points allowed to tight ends, let's see what the numbers tell us. The numbers are telling us this is a good matchup. All right, we saw Brock Wright break that 50-yard touchdown against the Jets in the previous week. And the New York Jets are right in the middle here, 19th overall, 7th in red zone rank. But this is their best opportunity to move the ball. And he's getting a ton of targets, as you can see, 25 in the past 2 weeks. So I love Evan Ingram. I'm liking Travis Etienne. All these are solid options at the captain spot. And then we got one more guy here, Zonovan Knight, the starting running back for the New York Jets. He's going to be splitting work with Michael Carter. Wasn't very capable against Detroit. But that was mainly because, hey, they're trying to force the ball out of Zach Wilson's hands, get him into some bad situations so he can make mistakes. We'll see if they change up the game plan. If Zach Wilson gets rolling, that's only going to equal positive fantasy points for the running back game as well in Zonovan Knight. So let's look at fantasy points allowed to the running backs. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are struggling in this category as well. We're going to scroll just down just a little bit. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, where we at? They're 20th overall, 24th in the red zone. So pretty much allowing 100 yards a game to running backs and 4.3 yards a carry and 1 TD per game. So this is going to bode well for Zonovan Knight in the rushing game for the New York Jets. Those are going to be the captives we're going to focus on. Let's move on to the cheaper options in the kickers and defenses. Last but not least, we have the flex ops. The first guy we're going to talk about, I don't want to get to the bottom feeders yet. Let's talk about Zay Jones real quick. Zay Jones is the number 2 wide receiver on this team here, and he has been popping off the past 5 weeks here. Week 15, 37.9. Week 14, 21.7. Week 12, 30.5. And against the Kansas City Chiefs, 14.8. Yes, this is a bad matchup, but if most of the eyes are going to be on Christian Kirk, Zay Jones might fall under the radar here. He has a little bit of upside. That's why we're going to put him as a flex option. I'm super surprised that this man he's on his way to 100 receptions and over 1,000 yards. Zay Jones, free agent from the Las Vegas Raiders. Absolutely insane. Great pickup from the Jacksonville Jaguars. He can be considered as a flex play. All right. Michael Carter is the number 2 running back in this offense. He's going to see some time alongside of Zonovan Knight. So majority work will be Zonovan. Michael Carter is the change of pace. He's going to see some work rushing and receiving as well. So hopefully he can get in the end zone for him to pay off his value. He's in a good spot going against this poor Jacksonville Jaguars defensive line. All right. We're going to wait on news about Corey Davis. He was a full participant on Tuesday. If he gets cleared, that's only going to help and bolster the wide receiver core of the New York Jets, especially with Denzel Mims out. They're going to need Corey Davis back, and he has a decent connection with Zach Wilson as well. So 2 of these 3 guys are going to have a good game, pretty much, with Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, and Corey Davis. Hopefully, Corey Davis is back as well. They have 3 formidable wide receivers going up against this secondary here in the Jacksonville Jaguars. So wait on news of Corey Davis. If he plays, he can be considered as a flex. Let's continue to go down low here. Marvin Jones is the number 3 wide receiver. Hey, with these corners, these top tier corners, some of these guys are going to fly under the radar. Marvin Jones is one of those options as well. We saw 6 targets in week 15 against Dallas, who has another good solid secondary, and he got in the end zone. So 9.7 fantasy points in that game. For Marvin Jones to pay off his salary, he's going to need to get in the end zone as well. He can be considered as a flex op. Now, let's talk about these defenses and kickers. The Jaguars defense are already seeing the holes in the quarterbacks. Holes against running backs, holes against wide receivers. I do not want to play the Jaguars defense at all. We are going to consider the Jets defense, though. Jets defense has been solid all year round. It's only going to get better with Quinnen Williams back. We have offensive line problems with the Jaguars as well. We'll probably, hopefully, see maybe some sloppy football as well. There's going to be a 90% chance of rain happening in that game. So fumbles, weird things are going to happen in that game. I'm going to lean towards a little more rushing and this Jets defense here to create some turnovers. Who they haven't created turnovers in a couple weeks here since week 12. So they are super due to get some turnovers. Expect that in this very high likely rain game here on Thursday. So I'm liking the Jets defense at home. Okay, that's always a big factor. Okay, you got the home defense and in a top 5 defense as well. So going with the Jets defense. If we're going with kickers, we got Greg Zuerlein, who's been solid all year. He's averaging 8.7 fantasy points per game. If we look at fantasy points allowed to the kicker position, let's see these Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville Jaguars are currently ranked 30th in the league, allowing 8.8. So this bodes well for Greg Z. All right, if we're looking at the Jaguars kicker, They're more middle of the pack. The Jets are only allowing 6.6 fantasy points per game to kickers. All right, so if I'm having to choose one, we're going to choose Greg Z. So he'll be thrown in this pool right here. And I'm going to stay away from the kicker of the Jaguars, okay? Let's see if we find some other gems down low. Now, for the tight end position for the Jets, it's been CJ Uzomah the past 2 weeks, okay? So we got 18 fantasy points from him against Detroit. And he's getting a little bit more targets. It's surprising to see him after it was a lot of Tyler Conklin earlier in the season. CJ Uzomah is more of a sure-handed tight end. We had a lot of problems with Tyler Conklin dropping the football, but we do use both tight ends. So lately it's been CJ Uzomah. He had 2 touchdowns last week. Hopefully he can get in the end zone this week as well. He'll be someone we can consider. And Tyler Conklin just saw a little bit of a downside in targets the past week in week 15, but he still saw 15 targets in that time period of week 13 and 14. So you can put both of these in here. It's going to be up to you to choose which one's your favorite. Technically, Conklin has been the more consistent. Uzomah had a good game, his first good game all year long. All right, so we're going to clarify that. So let's continue to see if we find any more gems down low here. Jermichael Hasty is the number 2 running back. He's seeing a limited amount of touches here, so I wouldn't go that route unless ETN gets injured, but that's hard to guess. All right, so if you go any further lower than Tyler Conklin and Jermichael Hasty and all those guys, we don't want none of those guys down below this cheap. All right, you don't need to go that far. All right, so let's lock in our 3 favorite plays for this slate. All right, so we got bad weather and this one here, but there will be some passing. So we're going to go with Garrett Wilson. He's going to be my first choice in this game environment here, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I love Garrett Wilson, the number 1 option here for Zach Wilson. He's been a standout pretty much all year long. We're going to go with Travis Etienne for our option on the other side of the football for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He can create. He has a ton of speed and burst. And I think Trevor Lawrence struggles throwing that football. And then number 3, we are going to go with Zach Wilson. All right, Zach Wilson. He's going to be in some RPO situations. He's going to be out. Hopefully, get him out in movement. Hopefully, they utilize his legs as well. We saw 20 fantasy points against a poor defense there against Detroit. Hopefully, he can replicate that against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to go and focus in on these 3 core players for our lineup builds: Wilson, Etienne, and Zach Wilson. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at MetsNetsJetsD, and I'll be back with another video very soon. All right, peace out, guys.